How many of you are programmers? The end is near. Now, this isn't your typical keynote, and a lot of these conferences have come, and they're happy, joy keynotes, or they're a tutorial for which you could probably more easily buy a book and read in the comfort of your lounge chair at home. You having trouble hearing?
The mic is not on.
The mic is not on. Thank you. Yes. Okay, now the mic is on. Few fingers go like narrow laughs, and the other one keep few fishes. Okay, that's better. So, 90% of you won't be here in 5 years. So this is a little bit different talk than the rest of the talks. This talk is kind of a downer, and I know it's a bad way to end a conference. But I want to put something in mind with which you can leave here and take some action. And this is not only for yourself. This is for Romania. I mean, the reason I'm here is because of the great potential I feel there is in this market to build great software. And it's being terribly wasted because you're the new India. Where are the products? Where are the Amazons here? Not that Amazon, the Romanian one. Where's the Romanian Microsoft? You guys can do this. Why aren't you doing it? So what I want to do is put a little kick in your pants and kind of put the fear of God into you a little bit, just about how serious a problem this is. And I don't think it's hypothetical. So yeah, we have the new software crisis. So there was a famous Twitter event where Musk got rid of 90% of developers at Twitter a couple of years ago. You know what? And they're still running. And the CEOs of other companies around the world said, oh my gosh, here's this big successful company, whatever success means to Elon Musk, that got rid of 90% of the engineers, and they didn't die. So everyone else decided to join the club. About 250,000 software engineers were terminated in 2023. So far this year, over 50,000. There's been over a 600% increase in software job terminations in the past 3 or 4 months. Oh my gosh, what's going to happen? Are we going to suffer a software shortage? Is there going to be a shortage of bits? Because the bit miners have all been fired? You know what? This seems to keep working. What's that mean? So this is what I've been saying for about 20 years. I mean, as a consultant, every shop I go into is grossly overstaffed. And I don't mean 10% or 20% overstaffed. I mean 1,000% overstaffed. I mean 10,000 overstaffed. And sanity is finally settling in on the industry. And these are the numbers that show it. So I'd like to explore this a little bit. Why is this all waste? Why have we discovered, and we have, the numbers show it, 10% of the people can do 90% of the work. We know this. Now, in fact, some of us has known this for 20 years. The people who are down on the Gemba, who have the big picture of what's going on in development as a whole, rather than just looking at the individual. You can see the waste. So let's analyze that a little bit. And then again, I want to leave you with some hope that there is something that you can do about it, both individually and as a community, to try to take this community into a new wave of software production where you're going to be able to provide service and build a really rocking economy around building real software. But this is just a Twitter thing, right? No, it's not just a Twitter thing. I mean, Apple just terminated 614 people last week, right? They killed the Apple car. Dell, 6,000 this year, 13,000 last year. IBM announced in February it will terminate 8,000 this year. Cisco announced it will terminate 4,000 this year. PayPal announced in January it will terminate thousands this year. Microsoft 1,900 in January. Expedia, 1,500 this year. eBay, 1,000 in January. Sony, 900 in January. Get the picture? Now, what's interesting is this isn't making the news. This isn't making Wall Street. Why not? Because the rest of the economy is soaring. And in some sense, software engineering is this dark little corner that no one seems to care about from a military industrial complex point of view. So, what's going on is invisible, and that's really scary. Because the economy and society are not going to come to our rescue. We're on our own here. We're on a limb. We got a big problem. Why is this happening? Why now? So like I say, I've seen this for 20 years, and it's easy to predict these things, but it's really, really hard to get the time constant right. So, now these things are finally coming. What are some of the reasons? And of course, I can't give you a scientific cause and effect. I haven't researched this in enough detail. But, what did we hear in the last talk? Duplication of effort, right? I have all this redundancy that's unnecessary, and people who are going to lean movements and so far are discovering this. The same debates over and over. I'm wasting time. I'm favoring technical over, you said functional. I like the word value. Right? And so there's all this crazy behavior. It's insane behavior. I mean, it's like your children in a daycare. And, we're fighting as children, and the daycare nurses have to take care of us and monitor us every now and then. And now they're finally saying, screw it, shut down the frigging daycare. Send the people back home to their parents, and if they can't get along there, they're on their own. But there are other reasons too. Neil Harrison and I did studies of over 200 software organizations in the 1990s, and we analyzed their processes in great detail. And what we found is about 60% of the roles in software processes were deadbeat roles. So everyone would say, well, what's your job? We had one job whose role was to worry. That was his job, to worry, right? I've worked with a large company in Japan where there are any number of people who will get a phone call from one person to put a rubber stamp on something and call someone else. And that's their job. And these are computer science graduates. And by the way, they're not stupid people. This isn't about, the people being suboptimal. This is about the system. There's something big going on here. This is not just because people are lazy, I don't think. There's also, and what's happening in this big company is, management is hiring an army. There's another big Chinese telecom that has the same thing. They're at least 1,000 or 10,000% overstaffed. It's like they're building an army, like they're going to go to war. Well, you can't blame me for late schedules. Look at the number of people I hired. It's these lazy developers. And I've hired enough to be able to meet these schedules. It's their fault. You can't blame me. Lack of improvement. Another thing is, what's the big topic in Scrum right now? What all the managers want to do? What are all the Scrum consultants selling? Scaling. Scrum and sale. Safe. Why? So one manager can say, mine is bigger than yours. Power is proportional to the number of people who report to you. It has nothing to do with value. But scaling is good business. A project focus instead of a product focus. No one cares about the end user. Developers, when's the last you talked to an end user about your product? Anyone in the last week? 2 people. You suck. All right. So what are you? You don't understand what the product needs to do. You haven't talked to end users. What are you? Secretaries? Clerks? Yeah. Using frameworks, and the managers are using dashboards. Sorry. instead of being down on the gemba and seeing what's really going on. They don't care about product. Everyone treats everything underneath them as a mathematical abstraction. That's what project management is about. Sometimes play a game with yourself. If you're on an airplane or in a cafe somewhere and you hear a couple of project managers talking, see how long it takes you to figure out what business they are in. Because they will talk accounting abstractions for endless amount of time without ever mentioning what their product is. I don't even know if they know. I mean, I had dinner a few months ago with the CTO of one of the largest beer companies in the world, a big beer company in Japan. And I don't think he mentioned beer once during the entire evening. He drank a lot. But yeah, I mean, it's all about managing this abstraction. We're focused too much on the process and not on the product. Now, I can imagine a market where they're not focused on the product. They're focused on doing the tasks they're being asked to do. It's called outsourcing. Are you the new India? Are you building product? You sit next to your product owner, or is your product owner somewhere in London or in the US? So that's what I want to change. And this, by the way, this is a false economy in software. So I'm a potato farmer, and I can do enough work, with my sweat on my brow and all those things to sell potatoes, to make enough money to feed me and my wife and to pay the mortgage, right? So that's kind of a fair economy. And it's kind of, from each according to their ability to each according to their needs. I heard that somewhere. You're supposed to laugh. This is Romania. Yes. Software, we got what? One guy who's making this game called Warcraft, which is making millions. So now you're making software. You get this totally unreasonable amount of income. Now you have money all over the place. You're a manager. What are you going to do with it? Hire people, because mine is bigger than yours. And now you have all these people who don't know what to do. So this false economy leads to overhiring. Okay, but you're on the other end. You're an employee. Well, it's just a job, right? You just go to work every day and, turn the nuts and pound the hammers and wait for the green bar to come up and invoke the build command. And it's a job. That's a semi-skilled job. I took a survey. Where was this? Oh, it was one of the booths. Maybe one of the people is here that asked the question, for a software professional, what percentage of them have written their first code before age 16? And the answer is 50%. It surprised even me. What you're doing, kids can do. And I've seen kids do it. I mean, are you an adult or what? We need to be responsible contributors to the economy. And this means doing great things and exhibiting market and product leadership and innovation. Not just being, a Charlie Chaplin who goes to work every day and turns the, tightens the screws. So, how do you know if you've had a good day? What do you value at work? What's great about your job? Why are you in your job? I thought we were way beyond lines of code. But I saw this on Twitter. This is 2 weeks ago, I think. Vicky says, wow, it's been a productive day. What was the size of your biggest PR? So here's another, mine is bigger than yours. 902 lines of code that I created and 25 lines of code that were deleted. I'm glad Grady Booch didn't see this. Grady Booch just goes nuts about things like this. And I said, well, you have a really funny definition of productivity. She said, well, I shipped the release. I said, okay, good. That's good. That's a good measure. But if someone had also shipped the release with only 10 lines of code, who was more productive? Well, she was more productive. It was more lines of code. Who got more value? The other person, because it was lower cost. Taiichi Ono, the inventor of the Toyota production system, says that overproduction is the number one cause of waste. I'm sure you're very productive. You go to productivity workshops all the time, producing lots of stuff. What percentage of your software is never used or rarely used? What percentage of your iPhone apps have you never opened? What percentage of the features have you never used? Across the industry, 65% of software is never used. Well, we're very productive because that's what we're focused on. Because we have all this money and mine is bigger than yours, causes us to hire lots of programmers who build crap that no one uses. So why do you code? And this is a sad one. Well, I got to make ends meet. Got to pay the bills. It's a job. I'm a prostitute. So, I mean, unfortunately, I run into a lot of people like this. Now, I had a really, really, really horrible client in Switzerland. It was a bank. And by the time I left there, they had gone into government receivership for fraud. I mean, there was fraud going on and mismanagement and everything. I mean, it was awful. I talked to the developers. I said, my gosh, your management is awful. It's a politically toxic climate. Why do you work here? And he says, well, I can always find something that's a challenge. And that's what turned him on. So he likes a challenge. He likes solving problems. It's okay. Bring it on. I mean, throw as much shit at me as you want to throw at me. Great. This is what I love. This is what I thrive on. I thrive on, wading up to my knees in horse manure and showing that I can do it. I'm running marathons in horse manure. And I think for a lot of software engineers, this is what it's like because management has not provided a good environment or you needed the job. So you took, the first one you can get. Who's interviewing for a job right now? Anyone here? Really? No one here? Okay, one person. It's hard, ain't it? Right now. Market's really tough. Why do you think the market's really tough? I just showed you the numbers. Companies are getting rid of people. They're not hiring people. You know what? It's going to get worse. Like 100 times worse. This isn't temporary. This isn't because of ChatGPT. This isn't because of AI. This is not because of COVID. This is not because of the recession. This is the name of the game from here on out, guys. Got it? Okay, we're in a whole new game. So I really want to challenge you about thinking about what it is you do for your job. When I first started coming to this conference, they had a little byline. What's your byline this year? It's about what happens next. Well, the great software recession. Okay, thank you very much. End of talk. The byline used to be the one with architecture. And I mean, there's some really, really cool architectural people who show up at this conference on, and unfortunately, neither of them is here this time. I mean, world class guys who really rock. People who, to me, are gods. And so, what's an architect do? How many here are architects? How do you know? Yeah. Oh, my business card. Look at my business card. It said architect. Okay, I guess I'm an architect, right? Every programmer is an architect. But you just don't act like one. Well, let me say that every programmer should be an architect. I have this wonderful quote from a guy I really respect. So I study architecture. I don't mean software architecture. I mean architecture of the built world. So I work with people like the Utzon crowd. Utzon was a Danish architect who built buildings like the Sydney Opera House. I work with Christopher Alexander, who just died last year, who was the founder of the pattern movement. I worked with other architects around Denmark. And if you study design and study architecture, you get a lot of insights about why our industry is screwed up. So here's Here's Rybczynski. If you haven't read him, you should read. Wonderful books. For centuries, the difference between master masons, journeyman builders, joiners, dilettantes, gifted amateurs, and architects has been ill-defined. The great Renaissance buildings, for example, were designed by a variety of non-architects. Brunelleschi was trained as a goldsmith. Michelangelo was a sculptor. Leonardo da Vinci is a painter. And Alberti, the most worthless of them all, was a lawyer. Only Bramante, who was also a painter, had formerly studied building. These men are termed architects because, among other things, they created architecture, a tautology that explains nothing. Why are you an architect?
I think about more than just the whole design, right?
That's a good start. That's a good start. How many of you think more about more than just the code design at the moment? Or how many of you are, you're moving toward that check-in and you keep randomly changing characters until the green bar comes up and then you check in? You ever seen this? It's called green bar fever. People just randomly change things. And then if changing the code doesn't work, they change the test. And then they have a fancy word for it. It's called refactoring. Refactoring is rework. Rework is waste. This is stupid. We're going to stop doing stupid things. You are paid to think, not to change characters to make the green bar come up. And this means reaching beyond that line of code you're thinking about at the moment. Architecture is not even a proper discipline. None of these guys went to architecture school. There were no English language architecture schools until in the UK in 1869. Christopher Alexander, another architect, notes that the architect deals with form down to the granularity of the 60th of an inch. When we did our research on these hundreds of organizations, we found that in functional organizations, that those who were not moribund, who are not dead, the architects coded. There's a lot of research at IBM that shows a high degree of correlation between success and the fact that the architect was coding on the team. So the architect is not someone on the ivory tower who throws things over the wall to the coders. They're just another coder. And you know what? Architecture is not a person. It's not a title. It's a set of responsibilities that dynamically moves from person to person according to need every few seconds. Every coder is an architect because every line of code affects the form of the system, and therefore, you are affecting the form of the system. You are an architect. Now, there are other things called domain experts. And they're a little bit less frequent. And yeah, I treasure our domain experts, but I think we confuse and confound these two titles. So yeah, domain experts are a little bit more few and far between, but architects should be a dime a dozen, particularly in complex domains. You can't afford to master plan like the architects did for the cathedrals. And the architects didn't master plan the cathedrals. Some of the cathedrals took 200 or 300 years to build. I don't think the architect was around for 200 or 300 years. These were not built under the direction of a single architect. This is poppycock. This is architecture guys were here. They either violently agree with me or they throw me off the stage. I don't know which. So, now someone else who saw this coming, any Amazon people here? I read a wonderful article by Jesse Watson from Amazon. And this was pre-COVID. And even pre-COVID, he was noticing that the consultants that Amazon was hiring, they were hiring fewer and fewer of them, and they were able to command lower and lower rates for their consulting. And this is pre-COVID. This wasn't COVID. Okay, it wasn't a recession. What it is that managers realize that the value is in domain knowledge. Now, how do you get domain knowledge? By living, eating, working, sleeping with the team. You're co-located. You're not remoting at the end of Skype out somewhere thousands of miles away. Co-location is everything. There's study after study after study from the 1960s, 1970s, 1980s, 1990s. Okay? By Thomas at Sloan School at MIT that shows this matters. You cannot reproduce it over Skype. I used to work with Skype. I bought Scrum in then. I worked for a day with the CEO and the executive board, and the CEO said, Skype is not a tool suitable for supporting multi-site software development. This is from the CEO of Skype himself. I was there when he said it. Having both domain expertise and the engineering expertise together in one skull are important. They're crucial. Amazon knows this. And you only need so much of that. And the owner of Twitter figured that out and figured out he only needed 10% of what he had. That was enough to cover all the domain expertise. This one guy he fired, he said, well, you better hire me back because there's stuff I know that no one else knows. Oh, yeah, what do you know? And the guy made a case and said, I did this, I did this, I did this. And, oops. And then he hired the guy back. So this is, why do 30% of software projects fail? Because the most valuable asset in the software industry is the synthesis of programming skill and deep context in the business problem domain in one skill. Programming skill in the absence of business domain knowledge is becoming increasingly worthless. Your damn 16-year-olds can do everything you can with your fancy computer science degree and all your certifications. This is not what it's about. So, really, these are domain experts. And you're saying, oh, no, I have a certification in Java. Oh my gosh, I spent 6 months learning the Java programming language. I didn't know any Java at all up until about 6 years ago. And then I needed to do a project in Java. I spent 3 days learning Java code and then wrote 50,000 lines of production Java code. You can see it on GitHub. I found one bug in it in the past 3 years. If you're a professional, you don't need to know how to learn a new programming language. You know the principles of programming. You should be able to pick it up in a day or two. But we're so proud of our certifications, and we're proud of the effort. Oh, look how many boulders I carried. Look how many hours I spent. Look how many lines of code I generated. How do you measure success? Oh, I have these great software skills. Wow, I'm a really great refactoring person. I really know how to run unit tests. Do you know that unit tests will decrease your quality? I can prove it to you. Talk to you over beer sometime. I'm really good at those, and I can make the green bar come out. So Watson, this guy from the last slide, observed that contracting engagements are getting paid less and less. And it's not AI or COVID. It's not open borders. Which is, there's something interesting going on in the U.S. economy right now. They're scared about inflation. And as of today, they're really scared about inflation. A lot more than yesterday. One of the things that the BBC said is that having open borders, like to Mexico, allows a lot of non-skilled labor in, and therefore it keeps down wages and therefore reduces inflation. So if you close the border, inflation's going to go through the roof. So you're a Republican. You're going to close the borders, or you're going to get inflation. And this is so sweet. Software skills are just clerical competencies. We're so proud of our 4-year degrees. I have a friend in Israel who takes people into his program, has 100 people come into the program, 12 people survive after 1 year. They come out with the same competencies that you come out of Herzliya or out of Technion University with. Programming language, process, architecture, design, UX, everything. 1 year. Who comes into the program? people who've immigrated to Israel as poets, medical doctors, massage therapists. And in 1 year, he turns them into crack programmers that he's able to sell like hotcakes into the high-tech industry in the Middle East. And you're so proud of your 4-year degree. No. So if it's not about just this skill, I mean, the skills are easy to learn. I mean, it's about architecture. What's architecture about? Well, there was an architect named Vitruvius, a Latin architect, and his school of architecture, he didn't actually design the Pantheon. This was built very shortly after his death in the school of his design. So we have Firmitas, Utilitas, and Venustas. Firmitas, it holds together. Utilitas, it's useful. Venustas, it's beautiful. This conference is one with architecture. Did I hear anyone today talk about beauty? Doesn't matter. Our architects are not. No, you're damn secretaries. You're typists. You measure your typing rate and you count lines of code and you say, this is what's been a good day. People confuse the stereotypes of engineering with architecture. So a lot of this is engineering. I talked to the people out, that was one of the vendors out here who's, the shirts say engineering and something. I said, oh, are you an engineer? Oh, yeah. I said, do you have a train? No. Look, I'm an electrical engineer. I know what engineering is. Software engineering is not engineering. Engineering is rooted in science. Software engineering is rooted in reading goat entrails and stars in the heavens. And dashboards. This is Christopher Alexander, an architect. The real heart of the matter is something which is not so easily talked about, something nearly embarrassing, which we would perhaps not feel entirely comfortable to blurt out too easily, even to mention. It's that shining something which draws me on, which I feel in the bones of the world, which comes out of the earth and makes our existence luminous. How do you measure success? How many of you have ever looked at your code or anyone's code and said, wow, this code is beautiful? You had that experience? How many have had that experience? Isn't it cool? And it's not just that it's indented right. I mean, there's something more, and you can think of a whole program as being beautiful. Why? Venustas, Utilitas, Firmitas. All these three things together. And they produce what Christopher Alexander called, so he says these are just little pieces of this. He said the big thing is what the Japanese call mume no shitsu, the quality without a name. It's not beauty. If we name it quality, if we name it beauty, it's not quite right. We name it wholeness, that's not quite right. We name it elegance, that's certainly wrong. Giving it a word destroys its meaning. It just feels right. You just know. Do you have that feeling when you do your check-in? I'm proud of this. I would be proud to show this to my professors who taught me programming. I would be proud to show this to my peers. I would be proud to submit this to a conference. I would be proud to enter this into a conference into a contest for beautiful code. You ever feel that way? Not the unit test pass. Our velocity went up. Our bug rate is low. You see, management incompetence and management predominance has led us into a KPI-driven industry of mindless slaves doing teachable, clearable tasks, 90% of whom are dispensable. Employees are managed rather than being set free to innovate. We need innovation. We're solving complex problems here. You can't use a method. You can't use a process. Software development is like group poetry writing. It's a creative act. How do you know your code is beautiful? I mean, you just know. Now, does it matter? Lead some back to the envelope research in Bell Laboratories. It was Larry Vada who did this, where they looked at bug density in code. How many measure, we were talking about measuring code. Oh, that was your keynote. You have a lot of data out there. So how do you know that a module should probably be replaced? What kind of data might you look for? High bug density, for example, right?
It's still that easy.
I know it's not that easy, but that's a really good starting place. That's a smell. Okay? So what we want to do is have some indicator of our code. We know this is going to be okay. And in fact, empirically, we found that consistent indentation style correlates to low bug density. This is embarrassing. It's not cyclomatic complexity. It's not fancy naming. It's the damned indentation style. We don't want to believe this. Sorry. I'm a scientist, and the science says this matters. Tapping into beauty taps into that part of our psychology and that part of our mind that's thinking about the whole system and therefore about the end user and meeting end user expectations, end user mental models. Whereas control from above limits productivity and damages pride and work. So is beauty the right word or elegance? I mean, it's more than utility and firmness and delight together or any of these alone. It's that shining something which drives me on, which I feel in the bones of the world. And it's a sensibility for beauty that we should be cultivating. And these kinds of people we should be hiring. These are the people that Twitter retained. The people who have this sense for systems, for end users, for beauty, for doing great things. This is about doing great things. Part of this relates, like I say, to envisioning how this interacts with the end user. Remember, the interface is the product. The code is just the crap that has to go along with the interface to make the interface work. The interface is the product. So here's the interface I use. Can you guess what business this is? You don't know? No. You've never worked with Pearson, have you?
Yeah, well, I'm just looking at myself there. That's how.
Yeah. This is for my books, for my book contracts. I mean, supplier side on a supplier, assessment number. What's an assessment? Response number. I don't know what any of these fields mean. This is a typical computer science design. You go here, it's like going into a bookstore. I mean, you don't even know you're on the computer. It just feels like being in a bookstore, and you pull books off the shelf, and there you go. This is beautiful. Why is it beautiful? How many of you are object-oriented programmers? Object-oriented programming is the art of creating an architecture that maps the mental model of the end user. It has nothing to do with polymorphism or inheritance or capsulation or cohesion. It's about human psychology. It was invented by Alan Kay. How many of you are object-oriented programmers? Then this guy came along and said, we need to make that structure visible to the end user. And he created a framework where each object we can represent as a model, okay? And then we have a view onto that model, which is presented to the user, and there's a controller that creates and intercepts views. Model, view, controller, user. The whole purpose of Model View Controller is to expose the beauty of the code to the end user so they can understand what it is they're doing. I worked with Trygve for 15 years. This was his purpose in doing this. Your code better be beautiful because you can't hide ugly code behind a good interface. It's going to show through. So modern programming works against beauty. Lots of things. Teamwork. Oh, we all like teamwork. If you're not at your peak, you can hide it so much easier in a team sport. Who said this? John McEnroe. He hates tennis. Unless you're playing doubles. Then you can blame your partner. He's always blaming something, right? We view programming as a trainable commodity, and that stops us short of beauty. Agile and the erosion of architectural focus. You ain't going to need it. Yodney. We're going to do one step at a time. I talked at this conference last time about how Agile radically decreases your efficiency and increases local optima. Full stack rarely includes user experience. So, okay, I can use a GUI builder. Two of you have talked to end users. We have awful programming languages like Java, and we have semi-skilled workers implementing someone else's idea. Yeah, like this is going to work. So you're slaves. You're subcontractors. You're executing some process. You're doing tasks. You have your task list. It's called a product backlog. But I mean, it's not your product. Build product. Don't offer programming as a service. I teach Scrum here. I taught a Scrum course in, it was Cluj or Sibiu, I can't remember. And there was the CEO of a company there, and he went home. He was pretty impressed. And next time he sent the co-founder and another guy. And it was a service company. Company's called Grafino. You can look them up on the web. And they were a service company. They dissolved the whole company. They reformulated. They became a product company. They've doubled their revenue. They've doubled their business. They're growing because they focus on product rather than services. You can do this. It's been done right down the road. I don't want to measure this in check-ins. I don't want to measure this in lines of code. Alan Kay said, where some people measure progress in answers right per test pass per year, we're more interested in Sistine Chapel ceilings per lifetime. How many Sistine Chapel ceilings has he done? That's what this is about. It's about doing this to learn. We don't just produce a product. One of the biggest products is learning. So we're not going to stand on our specialization. I just taught a Scrum course here, and the people were scared to death to move out of the area of specialization. No, there's wonders in learning. So this isn't to say that skill achievement is de-emphasized. Sistine Chapel ceilings are not got without healthy application of dreaming and great skill at painting those dreams. As bystander Leonardo da Vinci remarked, where the spirit does not work with the hand, there's no art. Papert, who's a psychologist, has pointed out that people will willingly and joyfully spend thousands of hours in order to perfect a sport, such as skiing, that they're involved in. Do it to learn. Do it for fun. There was another thread on Twitter. And someone asked, why do you code? Work is fun, passion, fun, enjoy, hobby, thrill, fun. How many have fun coding? How many of you do coding as a hobby? Everyone should do coding as a hobby, right? I mean, this isn't slave labor. You're an architect. You're designing. You're doing great things. I mean, you're not building pyramids like the slaves who built the pyramids. Ooh. Wait a minute. Did slaves build the pyramids? No, it's a myth. They were paid professionals. Their teams had contests with each other to see who could get the bricks up the pyramid the fastest. They were having fun. Innovate. You have all these people. You're going to fire them? Don't fire them. You have the money, keep them, and build garages. Just build garages up and down the road and fill them full of your excess people. That's where Apple came from. That's where Disney came from. That's where Amazon came from. That's where Google came from. What's the next Google here in Romania? A man came upon a construction site where 3 people were working. He asked the first, "What are you doing?" And the man replied, "I'm laying bricks." He asked the second, "What are you doing?" And the man replied, "I'm building a wall." And as he approached the third, he heard him humming a tune as he worked and asked, "What are you doing?" And the man stood, looked at the sky and smiled, "I'm building a cathedral." So you got to get rid of the engineering and learn how to be an artist. Thank you very much.